Hello and welcome to the Digital Innovation North podcast. This podcast connects technology leaders to ideas, information, and insights that drive digital innovation right here in our region. Our guests are technology leaders from innovative companies and experts from SDG. SDG is Solution Design Group, empowering innovation for over 35 years. Welcome to Digital Innovation North podcast. I'm your host, Molly Doyle. Today's episode, we'll talk with Leah Zimmerman, the Excel Program Director with Twin Cities Orthopedic, about digital innovation in the low-code space and how they leveraged a low-code solution to meet a business challenge and just what that journey was like for them. Also joining me today is Ben Story, the head of low-code solutions for Solution Design Group and a key partner to Twin Cities Orthopedic along their low-code journey. Why are we talking about low-code? Microsoft Power Platform with Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI is one of the fastest growing low-code ecosystems. It's already been adopted by like 97% of Fortune 500 companies. So a lot of our customers and a lot of people in the industry are looking at low-code as a potential solution for business challenges. And so we really just wanted to talk with some of our customers about how does that work? Is it working? Is it offering the real value that you would hope that it would offer, not just Microsoft solutions, but beyond Microsoft in the whole ecosystem of low code? You know, what's it like out there? What's actually happening in the market? And what does it take to be successful with a low code solution? So that's our goal today in talking with Leah. So Leah, thank you for joining us and tell us a little bit about yourself and your role with TCO.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I'm a registered nurse by background, have been a nurse for about 16 years. So the technology space is not my area of expertise. I've been with TCO for 10 and a half years. And during my time at TCO, I've worked in multiple different software platforms. So we've trialed and errored with a few, and really excited to be here to talk and kind of talk about our experience and our journey, since it's not at all where my path in education has brought me to. So I oversee a team of 100 nurses. We provide outpatient total joint care for patients having surgery in surgery centers, and then they stay overnight in a recovery suite with us. And so we had a platform to do some case management, and that's what we've been doing for the last 10 years, but really looking at how could we expand and allow myself, some of my counterparts on our billing team, to have a little bit more dynamic ability within a system with reporting, making edits and changes on our own without having to rely so heavily on developers behind the scenes to make those updates and changes. So that kind of brought us to you guys. So
I see. And so the business challenge was, I heard a couple of things. One was you were having to rely on developers to create changes that you needed to the system. And you had a lot of people accessing a single system, was it a single pane of glass, or were there multiple systems?
No, it was one system. One thing unique with us is we have our own EMR system, and that's not something that my team works in. So it was our own separate entity for a documentation and case management platform that only my team used. And we had used some kind of cookie cutter ones, and it just didn't quite fit the mold for what we needed. Our program is very unique. We work under like a home care license, but we're also a clinic and acute care. So there's not really a great system out there that could meet all the needs of coordination and navigation that we do. So it's been something we've done in the past, like try to build our own and go kind of from the ground up to meet our needs.
And so you looked at, are there existing products out there that could solve for you, but you felt like your business model was so unique that you had to build your own, but then building your own had its own challenges, it seems like, limitations.
There's nothing that truly met what our needs were in this outpatient recovery model, because we're not a surgery center, we're not a clinic, we're not a hospital. And then how do we meet like all the regulations that we have with our current licensing structure, and kind of it's a lot of like task driven, check this off my list, move on to the next thing to get some of these patients prepped for surgery. And there just wasn't any software that we had found or experienced or had heard of that could do that sort of work that we needed.
Okay. So you're looking to sort of automate some of that task management and streamline the like reporting or communication that those tasks were done or where they were at
Yeah.
within their flow.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then had you looked at alternatives in terms of like you could build a whole new, Java or what have you versus low code? Like how did you end up even finding out about low code?
Um, well, like I said, with my nursing background, I don't really understand coding.
Expert.
I think the very first meeting where we sat down with STG just to kind of do a discovery, I think Ben was in the room, and there was a lot of computer terms being thrown out there, and I'm like, I have no idea what anybody is saying. I
Uh-huh.
can come along for the ride and I can describe things, but the tech
Yeah.
terminology is not anything I'm familiar with. Um,
Yeah.
our connection with kind of looking and in kind of through a discovery period with SDG really was our CIO, had some really great connections and had worked with SDG before and had kind of explained a little bit about what we were looking for.
Right.
And I think that's where Bryce and team could kind of see what our needs were. And that's where we kind of then landed with you guys, was just from those past connections that we
Awesome.
had.
Yeah.
So you came into the conversation not knowing what the right solution was, but just sort of going, here's the business problem. What are some options? And so,
Yes.
so Ben, it sounds like you had a role in saying, maybe low code, or
Yeah.
is it just because you love low code so much, Ben?
Well, I do love low code and it is really fun to do development in, but we spent a lot of hours with Leah and team in a conference room. And this discovery session was really quite different than a lot of other discovery sessions that I've been a part of in the past. We also had another solution architect from the Microsoft side on our team that is his specialty is developing custom apps on Azure. So as we were going through this discovery, we really tried to take a look at this thing from a lot of different angles and just asking a lot of questions and trying to really understand where Leah and team and the finance team were coming from and what they needed to do to be more agile. We just kind of landed on low code as a really, really good fit for TCO and Revo. And another reason their IT team is very focused on infrastructure and not as focused on development. So from a
which probably makes sense if they were mostly purchased software, right?
Mm-hmm.
Third-party
Yes.
software, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to have developers on your team. You shouldn't need them, right? Yeah.
So that's really kind of the big way that we landed on low code for them.
Nice. Excellent. And so, Leah, what did that process look like in terms, sounds like there's this front end discovery, figuring out what the right solution was, but then there's this whole like, how do you map out what the right future state looks like? And talk to me about what was that like and who was involved from your side?
Yeah, since it is such a unique program and we had some restrictions on what we could or could not share because of some intellectual property, I think that added a big challenge for us. And I said to the SDG team when we first were in some of the discovery or they started kind of mapping things out, I'm like, I'm amazed you could pull what my brain was thinking to like get it on a screen despite not being able to show you really anything that we do and just kind of talking through processes. So in the room there was I was involved. And then we had our director or our VP of our rev cycle and finance because they're the financial side of our program. Our CIO was there and we had another we were looking at a solution that could work with two of our programs. So my program, and then there's another program at TCL that we were using it for. So Max, who oversees that, was in the room as well. But that was kind of the initial team. A lot of different folks at SDG were there. And it really went kind of drawing a Visio of these are all the steps that we go through. These are things that we need to document. This is the process we do now.
Yeah.
And I think kind of going through just the overview of everything so that Ben and team could really understand like what is the day-to-day like, what needs do you have. We shared, my pie in the sky dream of if I could make this exactly how I want it to be, these would be the things. What are you
Your wish
laughing at that?
list?
Because I
Well,
have
I
like
just said eventually, right?
my
No,
wish
that's
list.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we're heading into phase 2 of that wish list here this summer, which is
Nice.
wonderful. But we were able to then prioritize. We were on a little bit of a time crunch once we started looking at things of what do we need to get into a software platform, because we weren't just kind of working to continue the case management side. It was my goal from the beginning to pull all of our nurses who care for patients into an electronic medical record, because we've been
Ah,
documenting on paper.
ah,
And the amount of paper, it's like roughly 100
um,
pages of documentation that they would have to do. And it was a lot of repetitive
per
stuff
patient?
per patient. Yeah. By the time you like printed a chart, it was like 100 pages. So
Wow. Okay, so
it,
you're looking at time savings for
yeah.
the nurses, and you're also looking at access, like shared access to
Yeah.
files and information, faster access, obviously, because
Mhm.
they're not having to go from paper to, something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge, yeah. And so was there a business driver of like by X date for some reason, or is it just you just want to save time and energy and
Well, we wanted to save time and energy. I think for us in healthcare, especially in elective orthopedics, fourth quarter is our busiest time of the year. We do over half our volume in the last 3 months of the year.
you're
So
kidding? Because
So you
I
everybody's
got to
trying to
use
use
your
up their benefits?
HSAs
they're
and you,
trying to use
or
up their
different
benefits.
things. And
Oh my God.
Magically, everyone's arthritis becomes really bad in October every year, so that's when
Oh,
we start doing surgeries. So I knew I was I was up against that kind of end of the year timeline where I knew we needed
yeah,
to implement something either very late Q3 or at the very beginning of Q4, so that we could get
yeah,
people at least trained ahead of time and
yeah.
transition prior
Gotcha.
to where things were just crazy busy for us.
Yeah,
So that was part of kind of the let's
yeah,
get this rolled out before the end of the year plan. So we had really looked and through the help with Ben and others of what do we need for the case management side of what we're currently doing? And then in an EMR, what are the things that we have to have right away? And then are
mhm,
there things that we could then layer in for future feature development? And so that was the
yeah.
approach that we took. We were able to build,
Triage approach, if you will.
right?
yeah,
Yeah. We probably had about 80% of what we needed when we went live. And there were still a
Nice.
couple things on paper that just made sense to keep that on paper and then
Yeah,
spend more time to work on the development
yeah.
and new feature with that. So
Very
that was
cool.
kind of the timeline time crunch, I guess, that we were
Yeah,
up against. So
I love it. And Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but the solution also had to involve something outside of Microsoft Stack, right?
yeah, we used a different tool called Nintex, which really allowed us to convert those paper forms into digital forms. And, even graduate to mobile devices if they want to, walk in with an iPad and have that digital form. They're not double entry.
Nice.
And then we tied things in via workflows and APIs and things like that back into Office 365. So we
Mm,
were able to make two low code solutions work for for Revo and Leah and team to really
nice.
kind of give them the best of both worlds, because they had some really complex, very big forms that like physical therapists need to fill out on a day-to-day basis when they see all their different patients. And
Um,
yeah, we probably could have built them in Power Apps, but it just kind of made sense at the time to make sure our velocity was where we needed to be
mm,
to convert them into a different tool set that kind of mimicked more of the paper form
that they were used
assets
to.
to and I think it helped
Ah,
keeping them very, very similar to paper
yeah.
for when the
yeah.
nurses had to fill them out. It's like, oh, this is almost the exact same thing, only now I'm on a computer.
Oh, that's really cool. So almost from a change management perspective, if the form can look similar to the paper, then
Yeah.
there's just that much less of a learning curve. That totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was huge considering all the documents that we had and needed to
Yeah.
document on. There was some familiarity in how things looked and felt, but then we were also able, I think, to improve a lot of efficiencies. Whereas before it just used to be a lot of free texting. We could add yes, no, we could add drop down
Ah,
so that just it was quicker for the nurses to
Yeah.
be able to get through that documentation by being able to do it electronically, but felt a lot like that paper that they had been so used to over the
Oh,
last
that is so
13
valuable
years.
because if you're forcing them into an answer when you really need it to be black and white,
Yeah.
then you're actually
Yeah.
able to do that through the form. That's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Wow.
I think it was nice because Ben had taught me how I could update some of the forms or make some changes. So, like a perfect example, I think after we went live was physical therapists were like, you set up the form where the answer for the right side of the body is actually on the left column when you look at the page. Like it would make so much more sense if we could flip flop like left side of the body, left side of the page, right side of the body, right side of the page, where we never really thought of that, I think, in development, but it was
No.
really easy then where Ben's like, okay, you know how to make those changes, and I could flip around some things and then make it what
Wow.
we needed it to and didn't lose any data or anything in the meantime. So
Were
that
you
was
like, wow,
great.
pretty good for a nurse?
It's Ben and we did a lot of training sessions. I have a
Yeah.
lot of recordings and a lot of notes, but
Yeah.
I was surprised at how easy it was to work in that Nintex space and being
Uh-huh.
able to do some builds. Even with our kind of phase 2 feature development, I was able to actually
Yeah.
build forms right away, and they've just been sitting in there ready for a coder to help kind of connect the pathways of everything. So I think
Very
that
cool.
was a huge win. And I think early on, Ben, when we talked, like I
Yeah.
wanted the ability to be able to make some edits, make some changes, and make it be adaptable
Keep
to what
improving,
we
right?
needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
And so me being able to build those forms was great because I could get it exactly as we wanted or maybe tweak from that paper form of some
Mm.
improvements.
Yeah.
But then having someone who could do that coding behind, I mean, that was a huge, I think, time and efficiency saver. And then reduced a lot of back and forth of Ben trying to figure out what I needed or, how I wanted it to be. Being
Yeah.
taught how to do it, it gave me a lot of freedom to kind of create how we wanted that form to look and
How
really
nice
improve
too
our
for your
workflow.
customers because then you can really be adaptive as needs change or there's a new feature or new service that you offer, what have you. You now feel empowered that you can kind of
Mhm.
iterate and continue to evolve your service offerings and be so responsive to your users.
Yeah.
That's that must feel pretty empowering for your nurses too to be like, I'd like this. And you're like,
Well,
okay.
there's some things where it takes a little bit longer, but when I could all of a sudden like do something where it felt like the snap of my fingers to make a
Yeah.
change, it's like, okay, there are some things we can do quickly, other things we can maybe be a little bit more patient for the additional
Yeah.
development and the work that goes behind it.
Yeah.
So there's
Very
a nice
cool.
blend of that.
So you had 100 pages manual
Yes.
before. Now where are you at?
Well, the documents are all still there. It's just all electronic, and we were doing a lot of duplicate work. Like our pre-op nurses were having to do like get pre-op physicals and orders in. Well, they used to email those to all the nurses. They would
Yeah.
print those, put them into a paper chart, and then when the paper chart was done, we'd scan it back into a place where we could save everything electronically. So just
Yeah.
those steps right there reduced probably about 40 pages worth of paper that we didn't have to print because it was already right there in the system for
Wow.
everyone to have access to. Um, and I think,
Huh.
from being a nurse, I like to be able, if I'm doing patient care, to actually spend time with the patients.
Me
Mm.
And
too.
I know, funny thing. Um, and when we were on all this paper, we had nurses that were doing so much administrative work, like printing charts, labeling charts, printing stickers, just the repetitive documentation, where by going live in a system like this, we didn't have to do any of that, and it gave them back a lot of time and freedom,
Actual patience.
and especially in that end of the year when we're so busy, it allowed our staff to maybe run a little bit leaner, where a
That's so
nurse could take
cool.
an extra patient instead of knowing they had all this administrative work that they had to do. So that
Wow.
that was great from someone overseeing, the HR side of things and
Yeah.
and where our dollars were going to actually have nurses do nursing patient care versus printing sheets of paper and writing things was a huge win for us
That
as
is
well.
so exciting. Did you get any
Yeah.
feedback from the nurses or other staff members?
Yeah, well, as you can imagine, nurses are a hard group. We're a really hard bunch. We don't like change. So, of course, there were some that were embracing it because they've been asking forever, like, we need something electronic. We have a lot of staff that work casual for us. They're in a hospital. So going backwards to paper feels very archaic. But then we have a lot of staff who've been with us for 10 plus years. And so their comfort is paper. So it was a lot of change. I think, we mentioned the Nintex forms, knowing that the papers looked very similar, that helped. Um, and finally, we went live with this the end of September. We went through our performance review process with staff, and there was a number of our nurses who had commented when we asked, like, what was the best part of last year? And it was the documentation and the change in the system was a big win. And just the commentary of, just being able to type a note instead of handwrite a note, being able to read the previous nurse's handwriting to know like what they were writing about, it makes such a big difference to just be able to read something electronic than it is to try to decipher a handwriting.
And you said you went live September. Your goal was end of Q3 or early Q4, so you exceeded your timeline.
Yeah, we got right in there and got it happen, right as we started to pick up with our volume. So that was great for us.
You met it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Were there any big challenges or surprises along the way? Things that you didn't anticipate that you'd share as kind of a lesson learned for anybody who's listening and kind of wondering, could we do this?
Yeah. I think one of the big lessons learned for me was no matter how much you QA something in this practice environment, it's going to create some triggers or some bugs in a live environment that we need to adapt to. I had a team that helped QA things. I think for a lot of them it was, and maybe this is part of my own fault, not like setting different expectations, but I also didn't really know any better. But where they would kind of just play around, see the features. It's like, oh, this is great. Where I tried to go in, and especially after like the first couple QA rounds and we saw things go live of, I'm going to click on every single box and every single drop down, and I'm going to run through every scenario that I possibly can to make sure that this workflow works. And I think that's kind of hard, especially in healthcare, because most of the time, not most of the time, all the time, your documentation is around a live person in a situation in front of you. So to recreate that just by playing around is tricky. So, for us and for me, I tried to think of like a specific patient or a family member of mine, so that as I was doing the documentation, it seemed more real life to us.
So you're saying maybe use in-depth scenario-based testing in production. Maybe before you're live, but in a production environment so that you're really,
Yeah.
Well,
and
every nurse, does things a little bit differently too, right? They might enter in something slightly different than the other nurse. And it's sometimes when you're getting into Q&A and maybe doing happy path or just kind of punching around, you don't necessarily catch all of the little things of like, oh, shoot, this should be like this or like that until you kind of get it in the hands of the masses. And you're, it's not always
all those edge cases, right? Like, oh, the customer didn't have this piece done, so we actually had to go backwards, and then you got to rewind on what was documented, not documented, redocument that. There's so many,
I feel like we've been able to react pretty quickly and with the low code platform though to get and change things that have needed to be changes based on pretty quick feedback from the nurses because they are really, really good. And we appreciate it that there's that constant feedback because we need it. We want this thing to work right. It has to for Leah and her team. So
that's cool. One of the sort of promises of low code is that you don't have to be a developer, and yet we're seeing a lot of interest from our customers to help them at least get started and kind of bring get them up to speed and get things launched. Now that you've got it kind of running, where do you feel like you have the ball and it's going to, you can just keep rolling? And where do you feel like there's still a service that's needed out, whether it's SDG or anybody, but external? And the reason I'm asking is because when I said a lot of people have that question, right? They're thinking, can we actually be self-sufficient with this? And also because your environment, as you mentioned, you didn't have developers because you didn't need them. And so I'm just curious about now that you are where you are in terms of maturity with this product and the sort of platform, what do you think the future looks like in terms of maintenance and ongoing growth?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot that I've fortunately been able to learn, and I have either videos or job aids that I've created to help me through, so I can get people started. I feel like if there's something that comes up just through working and knowing some of the behind the scenes and the build up to what happened to production, I can try to troubleshoot as much as I possibly can with what I've been doing. Um, I would say where we still need that developer help is when I build those forms, I need to know how it can connect into our platform or also those Nintex forms, they go into the platform, but then how do we make it be like a viewable PDF that we can see and we can print? That's not something that I quite know how to do. And I'm not an expert in. So I would say probably like 70% I can troubleshoot and navigate things and make changes, but that background behind the scenes. And then trying to figure out if there's like a break in the code somewhere. That's not something that I would know how to resolve and fix and would lean on an expert to do that. But surprisingly, it was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
And is it fun at all? Because Ben thinks it's fun.
Yeah. I know Ben really got excited about Nintex forms and really like would tell me like he nerds out over that. And I would say as someone who likes to be organized and have lists and checkboxes, it was a lot of fun to build those forms and kind of play around and see what we could do. And there's, there's some limitations with things, but I could try like, okay, do I want this to be a yes, no? Do I want this to be a checkbox? Do I want it to be a drop down? Like I had a lot of opportunities to kind of customize it and make it fit our needs. So that was nice without having to know like the coding commands. It was dragging and dropping and visually being able to see it, not just numbers and letters, knowing that correlates to something. So that was huge for me.
Very cool. How fun to see that kind of growth for yourself too. Just what you can get done. Yeah. If someone's listening to our podcast and they're wondering if they should apply low code to their business challenge, what kind of recommendation would you have in terms of how to get started or how to evaluate or consider getting started with a low code solution?
Yeah, I think just giving all the information that you have. And I think the more you can like document or write down the workflow and processes and give visuals, the better. We're going through it right now with kind of our phase 2 where I was trying to explain all this medication stuff. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's just easier if I can put it down with notes, with pictures. And then I know like Ben or Alexis, they'll be able to see it and they'll be able to figure out like, okay, this is how this needs to work behind the scenes. And I think just really laying out all the information. I mean, there was a lot of things I said I wanted and not to be afraid of asking for something because if you don't ask, you won't know if the system can do it. So I think that would probably be my advice for people is, have a good kind of outline of what it is that you're looking for and then just going through step by step and Ben and team will ask the nitty gritty details to get where we need to get to finish the project out. So
that's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just a quick plug, we have an offering called a 2-hour geek out session where Ben can come in and just talk informally about a business challenge or a potential use case and just see if low code is a potential option. So if anybody's listening and interested, there's information that'll be included in the podcast details. So because definitely Ben likes to geek out and find out about what is the current state and what's possible and where whether it's a low code solution or another solution, just to really look at all the alternatives and try to come up with some options. So I'm glad that was useful for you and your team and that it's been a good experience.
Yeah. One other, as you were talking right now, Molly, one other thing I think was a big learning for me, I've been doing this for a number of years and we get in habits of doing things certain ways and we maybe have workarounds that we're all just so used to. And I think when I was working with Andres, when we were just kind of building things out, I'm trying to describe, well, we do it this way. He's like, but is there an easier way to do it? I'm like,
Uh-huh.
well, I'm sure there is, but this is the workaround we have. And I think that was also a big learning and aha moment for me was the team really looked at what is the end user experience and how can we come in with the lens of for someone who would be brand new to your organization who you need to train, how do we make it as simple and easy and user friendly as possible where we're not already developing it with these thoughts of workarounds or how you do your workarounds is if you didn't have a
Yes.
workaround, what would it look like? And I think
That's so
that
good.
that helped a ton. Just kind of looking at things from that perspective of just because we've done it this way, is there a better or easier way to do it?
Yeah. Oh, that's so great because it also helps me understand it's like some of that iterative value because maybe the emergency is just repeat exactly what we're doing, but that might not be optimal. And so to be able to step back and kind of go, is there a better user experience? Is there a faster path? Are there ways that we could streamline and even be more efficient and maybe just iterate through that? Or maybe, like you're saying, maybe even from the beginning, be willing to just kind of go, here's the goal. Is there a better way to get to the end game? Yeah, very fun. What's next now that you've done some fun things?
Well, my goal is, by end of year or even, before the next fourth quarter, we have our phase 2 implemented and that we are no longer relying on any sort of paper documentation
Wow.
is the goal.
100%.
100%.
Paper free, let's
Everything will be
go.
paper free. Yes, we'll save some
Wow.
we'll save a lot of trees with the amount of printing that we were doing in our
That
program.
is so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Exceptional.
Yeah, people are excited. We have a staff meeting tomorrow. And so I get to kind of tease everyone with the next steps that we're looking at and hopefully, what we can get done in these next couple of months.
What was the hard part of this particular, whatever these particular documents are that it had to wait until now? What were some of the challenges of that scope?
It was building out a medication administration record. And so it wasn't like the Nintex forms. It needs to be a very fluid form that many people can go into and document. And to be honest, I thought it was going to be a lot harder to train people on it and just do the development work. So it kind of was this best of both worlds is, the medications could still stay on paper. And that was a comfort for a lot of people as they were learning the system. And then now that they know the system, training, I think to this will be a lot easier. So it's building out our entire medication portion of the program and the medications that we administer. So I knew it would probably take a little bit more time in development and I didn't want that to hold up any sort of release for us last fall. So
because we definitely got to go more power platform for those types of things because of the information sharing and the different screens that need to be available for the nurses coming into the rooms. It's not just a simple one-off form that we fill out and submit and then view the document or whatever later and it's all history. These are when the nurses are administering these different drugs, it's a constant like, hey, I gave them this at this time. So then the nurse coming in at the night shift can say, oh, they got it at this time. I need to give them to them at this time. So there's a lot of that information sharing that we have to take into consideration when going into this next phase for them.
Yeah.
And I'm imagining, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but because you talked about medication management, how many thousands of prescriptions there are. And so are you also connecting to a data source, like an external data source how does that work?
Yeah, not for this. Our meds are pretty standardized in our program of the medications that we're giving
Because it's
postoperatively.
repeatable surgery.
Yeah, and it's the first 24 hours of medication. So it's pretty much the same medications that we're giving with a little bit of variation. So I think that helps a lot because it's pretty protocoled out of what we can administer. I think it's just more finding something that can be dynamic enough so that everyone can see the information. It's clear to understand when meds were given. And then we also need, our nurses are used to paper, so they would bring paper in the room to administer meds. So we needed to think of options of now we have to bring iPads in, or we'll need to bring laptops in when we administer those medications. So those are all some of the considerations that we need for phase 2 of this project.
And so are you using a mobile platform? Or is that part of the future?
I know we can use it on a mobile platform. We haven't. I mean, we've either done them on desktops or laptops. But I know that was one of the approaches that we took. And one of the things that Ben talked about a lot is the ability to go from a computer to be able to do it on a laptop or a tablet, and that it would all look and feel the same for staff. So
that's exceptional.
Yeah.
Well, who knows what the future holds? So dynamic.
Yeah, it's
so
exciting.
Scalable.
Yeah.
Well, it's just been a pleasure to meet you and get to learn more about your journey, and just excited that we've been able to be a part of it, and look forward to hearing about what's to come.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and for all the help we got on this project. It was a lot of fun.
Good.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And just working with your team, just the knowledge transfer has been great. Makes our jobs easy.
Yeah, it was a great relationship.
Hey, thanks for joining the Digital Innovation North podcast. For more SDG insights and access to all of our podcasts, please visit our webpage at solutiondesign.com.